Hi, everyone. This is Jacqui Cooper with Crypto Mom 2 Talk Show, and I want to welcome everyone to this episode. I have two individuals on that I've spoken to on an earlier episode that I welcome everyone to hop on over to J Cooper Travel so you can hear more about our conversations there. We're going to be talking today about solar and blockchain and cryptocurrency. But before we get into the philosophical and the nitty-gritty of all that, I just want to share a little bit more about my background and why and how I started Crypto Mom 2. So I started Crypto Mom 2 a few years ago as I was just beginning my journey into exploring blockchain and cryptocurrency. I know for many, I've shared this story before. I'm old enough that I remember when Bitcoin was first started and I thought it was cute and it wasn't going to do anything. And now, many years later, I'm actually a Bitcoin miner. So, again, we all evolve and we all learn and we all, explore new paths and we diversify. Now, one of the things I do want to mention right up front is that these shows are not financial advice. You do have to invest at your own risk. You have to do your own research, and everything that I share is my own personal opinions and experiences. And that's exactly why I created Crypto Mom 2, because as a newbie in this area, even though I've been doing it for a few years, I'm still new in comparison to some others. There's so much to learn, and the whole area is evolving so fast. But I've taken a deep dive. I shared with someone else a few days ago that I feel like I'm getting a master's in blockchain technology only because I've been doing so much reading and everything. And I'm loving it, from NFTs to brands and the metaverse, you name it, I'm exploring it, and I'm interviewing people all around the world. So with that being said, I want to introduce and welcome my guests, Rand and Randy. I'm going to have them introduce themselves because they actually are in different parts of the world as well. And I especially have had many conversations with Rand over the last few years. And I just recently met Randy. And so we are, having a lot of interesting philosophical conversations that I think need to be had. So I'm going to stop talking so both of them can introduce themselves. How are you doing, guys?
Great.
Great.
Randy, you want to start, or should I introduce you?
Please take care of yourself, Rand. It's all good.
Okay, good.
We're super humble. That's what I love about us.
Yeah. So my name's Rand. I'm not as educated as Randy. We met him a while back. I was looking at ways to kind of take some of the skills I had learned over COVID, where I kind of pivoted to more of a digital marketing background. And I started looking at different industries where I could deploy those new skill sets, and came across solar. And I thought the value proposition was very, very interesting. And as that evolved, my wife ran into Randy. We hit it off. He has some very high level understandings, and he looks deep into the philosophical underpinnings of an industry and business models. And we just kind of geeked out on different aspects of it. And he's very knowledgeable. He's an investment banker for 25 years. He can tell you that as well. But we kind of hit it off. We started, collaborating in different ways. And then I talked to Jacqui. She said, that'd be interesting. Some of the conversations and the ideas of the interplay between solar and crypto could be very interesting. And obviously Randy's got a wealth of information, and I've got some pretty good chops myself as far as ideation. And so we hit it off. We thought we'd do the show for you. And I'm in South Africa. I moved here because we like the lifestyle, and I like having an international expat experience. And that's my story. So Randy.
It's really hard to come after a conversation that he just had, but I will try. Rand speaks very eloquently. I, on the other hand, not so eloquently, but more factually. Personality-wise, he wins. There's no question about it. I will say, yes, I have an investment banking background. I was on Wall Street for a long time. And in doing so, I come from a space where we really look at the underlying assets themselves, understanding where they come from, how they're made, and really understanding how they fit into the business dynamics. When you interconnect different businesses, when you look at the deeper dive in businesses, you have a different fundamental philosophy. So my experience, my education brings me to that as a basis. But when we can look at Bitcoining, we can look at mining Bitcoin, we can actually incorporate some of these really great processes that take place. And when we talk solar, we have this interconnection that takes place, this renewable energies component. And that's really one of the things that led us together. Yes, I met his wife through our business, and we really hit it off very well. So, Jacqui, that's a little bit about my background. But I'm a very big advocate on renewable energies. It impacts the world in so many different ways, especially because where we came from, burning some sort of fossil fuel to make energy, we know how harmful it is to a lot of environmental components in the world. But when you can renew something, reuse something, and you can get the same benefit from another product like Bitcoin mining and generate, as we've discussed off this conversation, outside of this conversation, really great ways of utilizing that excess heat, learning that we can reuse it. It's a great, nice complement to what we're talking about.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, for those that are not aware of what Bitcoin mining is, let me just kind of give you a quick summary. You can do cloud-based mining, or you can do mining, which is with computers and rigs. I personally decided not to do cloud-based mining, but there are individuals who are, so they're using their computers and websites. The reason why I decided not to wasn't necessarily from an energy perspective, but I was concerned that platforms might close down, and then the coins that I had generated through those platforms would not be available. So because in many ways I am a risk taker, but I'm also conservative. And so I was looking for, I'm based here in the United States, and even though I'm very comfortable with working with platforms and businesses outside the United States, I was looking for a United States-based company that I could actually drive to and check them out and, see the rigs and whatever. And so the company that I ended up associating with actually has mining farms in Colorado, Montana, Canada, but I was able to drive up to Philadelphia and meet the individuals that started the company. And for those that are interested, the link will be in the blog below. But Bitcoin mining generates the Bitcoins that are purchased on the exchanges and verifies mathematically the codes to verify that it's a real purchase, and then generates, the coins. So basically, it's like owning an apple tree. When you go to the exchange, you're like going to the supermarket. You buy a bag of apples. When you do Bitcoin mining, you own the apple tree, and I get paid daily Bitcoin as a reward for my machine solving the mathematical coding challenge. And then I'm able to send the apples, the Bitcoin, over to the other exchanges. Now, let me just say, I don't do anything. The machine does everything. So it's definitely hands off. But from an energy perspective, there's been a lot of discussion online, offline, in the news. And some of you might have heard that El Salvador has decided to, use Bitcoin as part of their currency base, and they're using volcanoes. I know the company that I'm associated with uses hydropower, but Randy and I were talking about the idea of using solar, especially if you're an individual or a business, and the value of using solar because of the fact that you can fix rate your energy costs, which means then you can then allocate that extra money towards mining or other investments, however you want to diversify your portfolio. And reusable energy is a win-win for everyone. So do you guys want to kind of jump in and share a little bit what we were talking about before?
Randy, maybe we should get into, just as a backdrop, there's a transaction that occurs just briefly on net metering, it's called, which and that will kind of show you where the value comes from and how that in the end of the day equates to the fact of trading your existing energy bill for typically a lesser bill, and you freeze that rate in time for 25 years, which is going to save you a lot of money, which you parlay into other investments. It's a decentralized power consumption. And then you can take that decentralizedness and put in decentralized currency and double down. So that's kind of the basic theme that we're playing into here. But to understand net metering and how things are changing there in the industry is kind of insightful. A lot of people don't know that. And then if you do leverage solar right now, there's better deals right now. If you don't, how you can still leverage that extra energy and how that whole picture fits together. There's a lot of components here, but Randy's probably better to explain it than I am.
And I'm going to jump in just for a quick second to let everyone know that when you go onto the link that we'll have below that will let you learn more about the solar opportunity, there is no cost associated for you if you're trying to explore that. And that is, I think, a concern that a lot of homeowners or individuals have. They don't really understand the cost factors. And the other thing that I want us to not forget to talk about is the tax advantages. Because again, those tax incentives can help you save money, which you can then reallocate. And that's one reason why I also became a Bitcoin miner, because of the fact that I can depreciate the machine, and the hosting is a write-off, to the extent allowed by law, et cetera, et cetera. So all of these things, when you as an individual or as a business person are looking at solar or cryptocurrency, you should take this into account, because it just frees up some more money that you can then use for your family, friends, however you want to allocate it. So Randy, why don't you go ahead and talk tech to us now?
Wow, what a setup. Okay. There's a few things that you touched on. So from an agenda perspective, all right, I always like to look at things from a big picture.
Yeah.
Every year our utility bill goes up. There's a couple reasons behind it. Sometimes it's a cost associated to just keeping the infrastructure, correct due to a natural disaster, hurricane, a natural disaster in some capacity. The second is primary, it's inflation. Inflation keeps going up. And I want to make sure that we tie these things in to this decentralized component of what Bitcoin is all about too. So right now we pay an electric bill. It has no end date. When you own your own energy, the panels last up to 45 years. That's not a plug, that's more factual, And when we look at the cost of energy rising each and every single year, different markets more expensive than others. California is super expensive. Other areas of the United States also are expensive. We talk about some very specific dollars and cents. But outside of the dollars and cents piece, storing that excess energy that the sun makes during the daylight hours that you're going to use at night can be done in two ways. We talked about net metering. Net metering specifically is returning that excess energy directly to the utility company. Because electricity has to go someplace. This is me teching out a little bit here, guys. Electricity has to go someplace. It can't just go anywhere. It either goes in the ground or it gets sent to your neighbors, right? So if you're producing the energy on your roof or wherever you're getting your solar energy from, it's eventually going to be passed to your neighbors if you're not using it, because it has to go someplace. And the electric company is charging them a full boat for creating that energy that you've created. So in order to really keep and capture most of that energy, you can store it. You can do it by way of a battery storage, which is energy storage, and therefore return that energy at times of which may be appropriate for different utilities. This is, again, a little techie for a second, right? Time use. That means, simply put, that some utility companies charge you a greater amount of money at certain times during the day to bring or deliver the energy that you need to all of you and the neighbors at that time. So an example, 5 p.m. to 9 p.m., everybody's home, charge you more money for that during that time period. If you can put that energy into an electric battery, a storage component, a solar battery, then you can return that energy that you've stored from the sunlight during the day and return it to you as a renewable piece. Now, bring that to the experience of what mining is about for just a second, right? And now you have this tech involved. But when you can buy your own energy at anywhere between 5 and 40% less on a monthly cost, imagine, we talk about rising gas prices, especially because they're relative to the news today and what's going on in the middle, shall we say, in another part of the United States. I'm keeping politics out of the equation in this conversation. But what we can do is we can realize that it's going to be costing us more for gas in our vehicles today. And it probably will continue in the near future. But what we can do is we can eliminate that rising cost of electricity right now by owning your own energy. When you do that, it's an immediate savings. You have a family that is now saving, on average, let's just say your average electric bill is $200. If you could save 40% of that, you're talking about $80 a month. That's $1,000 a year. Take the $1,000 a year and then put it into something else. That's what I mean by diversification. And I'm not using investment advice. I'm not giving investment advice,
Yeah.
right? We've already clarified that in this show. But what I can say is, wouldn't it be nice to reinvest that money in another something that can generate a great rate of return for you too? And when you mine Bitcoin, that in itself is a great opportunity for you to diversify with that excess money that you probably would have been spending anyway with the electric company. Why not convert it into something that's true savings for you and your family, growing another pot of wealth someplace else? And that alludes me to, what are the energy benefits of, as you said to me in the previous conversation that we've spoken to, you have a miner in Canada that is Bitcoin mining, and you've told us a great story, which I think fits right into this conversation. So, Jacqui, I'm going to defer it to you to tell that story, because I really believe that when you can see this renewable use of energy, then this really becomes, a worldwide event that we can all take advantage of. It's available. The sun comes up and down every single day over everybody in the world.
Yeah. So what Randy was mentioning is, I interviewed another individual on the Crypto Mom Talk Show, and he's an individual who's based in Canada, and he's in the construction business, and he's actually using NFTs to create architectural plans for houses and buildings that are going to end up incredibly being built on the blockchain with the use of the blockchain. But within that building, he's incorporating the idea of solar and also Bitcoin mining. So what he's doing is that within the walls will be the mining rigs that will generate heat for the house, and the solar will generate additional energy. And, again, it's the idea of creatively using all this technology to reuse, reduce, and just be creatively involved. And the house that he's talking about, because of the Bitcoin mining side, again, has the ability to generate income. So, it can basically almost, again, not investment advice, but it might pay off the mortgage. So again, it's, instead of having a renter, you have a machine. So, it's very creative, really, really creative.
We always call the solar panels an energy producing asset on your roof.
Yeah.
So you can now put a Bitcoin producing asset on your roof. It's just another step. That's what we're talking, jumping that gap and having a house that produces an asset as part of its underlying features is very philosophically interesting idea. And the walls thing is remarkable. The guy's a genius.
Yeah,
it makes great sense to do it.
It does. And within the next 10 years, just like when we watched in the 60s or 70s, the sci-fi, movies, and we saw people talking on this box, that we now call a phone, and now we have a cell phone. Again, what we thought was not possible down the road, it truly is, because of everyone coming together and the creativity. So, again, for those that are interested in the solar side, there are definitely some tax savings depending upon the states that you're in. Are those tax savings going to be expiring, or what's going on, within the industry?
Would you like me to touch base on that, Rand? Okay. So right now, through the end of 2022, 26% of the federal tax credit is available for anyone that files Form 5695 by the IRS with their tax return to get a 26% tax credit for using a renewable energy, for producing renewable energy. That credit is available. And of course, deferring to your accountant to make sure that you qualify for it is the appropriate message here in this conversation. But also, more importantly, each state, I shouldn't say each state, many states offer additional incentives to the residents of those states should they have a renewable energy as well. And being that you're in Maryland, Maryland does subscribe to that component. That is called the Solar Renewable Energy Credit. The acronym is SREC. And you can easily find that information on srextrade.com.
And I know that in our previous conversation, you also talked about the quality of the vendors that install the solar panels. So do you want to just briefly mention that? Because that I know was something that was a concern for me many years ago, which is why I kind of postponed, even though I also knew solar was evolving. So I was waiting. But talk about the quality of the people and how, and the insurance, because again, if my memory is correct, it's Lloyd of London's, and that, so explain.
I'll clarify.
Yeah,
Sure.
explain all that.
So let me clarify that for just a second. Rand had shared something, that's the backing of the insurance. Solar Insured is a insurance provider. They provide a 30-year, it's basically a bumper to bumper warranty on anything associated to the solar system. The panels that include a tier 1 solar panel, and we can get into another conversation about the differences. But for the most part, a tier 1 is the highest rated solar panel available on the market today. It also includes the inverter, which converts energy directly made from the sun into the usable energy in our house. And then lastly, it also includes any roof penetration. So the racking components, if you drill into the studs of the beams in the attic, and you potentially have, shall we say, a mishap from the installation, outside of, say, companies that go out of business, because we know that manufacturers could go out of business. We know that installation teams do go out of business. This insurance covers all of that. So it includes labor, which is great. It includes all parts, which is great. It also has zero deductible for all parties involved. That's fantastic. And lastly, it's transferable to the next homeowner. So it really stays with the system. And that makes it even more marketable for what we're also talking about, which is how to increase the value of our net worth a little bit. And we can do this because the energy that's made on our roof that we use, the next homeowner is buying your house without an electric bill, theoretically. I mean, for the most part, I shouldn't say completely, because there are some inherent expenses associated with connecting to the utility company. For example, a utility company may have, especially in the state of Florida, as Ram was alluding to in this conversation earlier, that there are some changes that have taken place with solar. And now they have a minimum charge that they will charge somebody for having solar on their roof generating energy, because the utility companies will be at some point trying to break even or keep their costs relatively similar to what they're netting. So they're charging a minimum dollar amount on an electric bill to just stay connected so that you can return that energy. Again, all that excess energy that you're making over daylight hours that you may or may not be consuming at that moment, for that net metering component, gets sold to the electric company. Certain markets don't allow you to have a one-to-one buyback. And if that's the case, that even makes it more of a proponent for having a solar renewable battery on your home as well.
Randy, do you mind?
Please, Rand, go ahead, please.
Yeah, go ahead, Rand.
Oh, just wanted to add to that. So I wanted to explain, Randy once explained it really simply. Net metering is put a bi-directional meter. Right now there's one direction, and it shows the energy consumption you use, and that's the meter. That's it. And it shows you here's what you use and here's what you pay. Bi-directional is net metering. So when you make excess energy during the day, 30% more, whatever your panel or rooftop will create, you send it back to the power company and they kind of become your battery. Because then at night when you need that again, you take the energy back, but then it's a credit that will offset it. So what's funny is right now they're offering to incentivize people to go solar. They're saying, hey, look, when you give us the power back, we're going to give it to you at 1-to-1. So you're not going to lose anything. So you will, whatever you're buying it from us, we'll give you that back as a credit. That's a huge bonus because there's expense and everything else what they're doing for you. They're giving it back to you 1-to-1. Why? 2 reasons. There's mandates, green energy mandates from the administration and everything else. They get fined really big for not getting enough adoption to solar. And 2, everyone's at home. They're home now from COVID. A lot of people are staying home. They're working from home more. So the pressure, especially in certain states where people have moved there, like Texas or Florida, is much, much higher on the grid. And they need to bleed up that pressure or else they're going to have rolling blackouts. So they're doing this. And what they're doing, though, is they're incentivizing people with these very good deals. It's a contract. Contract is hey, if you give us back energy, we're giving you 1-to-1. That's huge. Okay, it's a very big. Now that is ending right now, and I want to show you this just because I find it fascinating how the market is evolving. And if it ends, it's going to change the value proposition. Okay, so the bottom line is this: that solar, like if they stop that 1-to-1 buyback ratio, there you go. I'm looking for right there. Okay, they stop that 1-to-1 buyback ratio, then it's going to lessen the value for the relationship. So for instance, they go say 25 cents. They pay you 25 cents on the dollar when you give it back to them. Okay, so you're not going to make as much credit to offset your usage at night for that solar. So that's changing. Like right now, the contracts are there, but as the value of solar changes, because inflation right now at 7%, your power bill will double in 10 years. Okay, so that's value enough to say, hey guys, you can take your existing bill instead of have ever escalating power bill. You swap your $200 bill for a $180 power solar bill and freeze that in time for the next 3 decades. That's a very strong value proposition. That's enough for most people where they don't need to see a $200 bill become 180, because the 180 actually kind of involves the buyback relationship. Okay, now solar becomes, as inflation gets higher and higher and more, and Dave Ramsey's of the world start talking about, hey, you really want to opt out of all the energy inflation, and solar is a tool to do so. Then the power company says, hey, our adoption rates are happening, we're meeting our green mandates, and we don't need to give as well as strong a net metering contract, which means you might trade your existing $200 bill for a $220 solar bill, but you're still freezing in a time and it's still worth it. Why did I get to all this stuff? If that happens and you don't go move fast enough to get the net metering contracts, the early adopter ones that are really very strong, now you get extra 30% energy, and the power company says, we'll pay you 25 cents on the dollar for that. And you say, hey, no, I'm going to parlay that into a mining routine and take my full energy value and now put that into mining Bitcoin. So I just want to explain how the changing dynamics, if you don't move solar by now is get those net metering contracts, they're valuable. And if you don't make it, don't throw the energy back to that 25 cents on the dollar. Say, no, thanks. I got another use for this solar. I'm going to parlay it. So those are the concepts that are fascinating. And we were kind of discussing it earlier, and I hope that wasn't too obtuse.
No. You know what? I'm going to do a quick summary because I know that we're going to actually have more than one conversation. So just like blockchain, cryptocurrency, Bitcoin is becoming more and more popular and day to day and commonplace, I do think that everyone needs to be looking at solar as a way to adopt it and integrate it into our lifestyle, because renewable energy sources and tools and technology, these are the things that we all need to be doing right now. So it's better for the planet, it's better for us, and it will create more income that we can then allocate to whatever we decide, whether it's on the crypto side or the traditional side. Again, I've said it at the beginning, this is not financial advice, but however you decide to allocate the dollars that you're generating, energy is something that we all need to be thinking about, because again, not trying to be political, we need to be independent of our how we create our own energy. So that way it gives us more freedom. So for everyone who's listening, there will be links below so you can explore it. And it's like everything else, gather information, see what's right for you and your family. And if it's right, perfect. And if it's not, then that's fine. But I do think that, especially with the company that Rand and Randy are associated with, I've not heard of any other company that has an insurance-based backing that, takes into all the various factors. And that was one reason why I became associated with the Bitcoin mining company that I'm associated with, because my rig is insured. So again, there's always risk, but it reduces some of the risk when something else happens to the tech side of it. So that's something to consider when you're going down any path, is how do you mitigate certain areas. So
I love that you just said that, by the way. because
Yes.
that to me speaks volumes to why what you're referring to is so accurate. What Rand discusses is so pertinent. And what I'm talking about in the connectivities associated to renewable energies is also so mitigating. It so lessens the risk financially. And then if you think about what it does in terms of the things that make it go up, the things that erode some of our buying power, like inflation. I know it's a fancy term that many people don't understand. Maybe our audience doesn't understand what inflation is. And we can talk about that another time. But for
Definitely.
the most part, I do want everyone to understand that, a dollar in your pocket means it's yours. But how you can spend it is really at your choice. And when you can lessen the risks for exactly what Jacqui's talking about, what Rand and I are talking about, it makes great sense for you to have alternative ways of reinvesting your money when you don't have to spend this greater amount of money to produce the same energy that you're using. That in itself is great savings. And in the scope of the world, it really is benefiting everyone.
Yep. So with that being said, I want to thank both of you for coming on. I know we're going to have more than one conversation. So as I've been sharing on many of my talk shows since the beginning of 2022, be kind to yourself, be kind to others. We're all connected. We're all one world. And thank you so much, guys. Talk to you soon. Have a great night.
Thank you.